Yo, what's good, everybody? It's Austin here, or Luna. Hope you guys are having a great Tuesday so far. Mine's going pretty good. Now, today's story time, it's a pretty good one. Yesterday, I told a story. It was called Dabbed Out, and, I just talked about how I got caught, and, it's definitely like an OG story. Definitely really like it. And today's story time is something in a similar vein. Definitely a favorite of mine. I hope you enjoy it. Leave a like on the video if you do, and let's jump into it. So today's story time all takes place back in freshman year of high school, 9th grade. Now, this was actually the beginning of 9th grade. This was only 2 months into the year. I was still pretty new to everything, still pretty new to high school, but I was enjoying it, and, it was actually a lot easier than I thought it was going to be. I know that sounds ironic coming from a high school dropout, like how was it easy if I dropped out? But I just mean like 9th grade, I remember when I was in 8th grade, everybody was telling me when the year was over that, high school was going to be so scary and it was going to be so insane and, complex and wild, and like it wasn't. I got to high school and I was like, oh, this is the same thing as middle school, just a little bit more grown up, So, it was good. Life was good. High school was going okay so far. Definitely not much to complain about, right? Well, about 2 months in, this all starts off like any other normal day. I jumped up out of bed, took a shower, got ready. I was actually up at a pretty decent hour compared to most days where I'm waking up like right before the bus got there. And yeah, I got ready. The bus came. I went to school, started off my day like any other day, went to first period, and things started off fine, right? Now, about halfway through the day, right before lunchtime, I was in my English class, right? And my schedule would flip a lot. Some days I'd have English in the morning, some days I'd have it before lunch. It would change a lot. All my class periods would change pretty much by the day in terms of what time they were at. And yeah, I had English right before lunch, right? And I hated my English class. My teacher, there was 2 teachers actually in that room. There was the main teacher, and he was just a dickhead. And then there was this girl, and she was also kind of a dickhead. And I just didn't like them very much. I thought they were very judgmental. If you wore something they didn't like, they would judge you for it. And even if you weren't breaking the dress code. I remember one time I wore skinny jeans to school, which if skinny jeans have kind of always been in. I feel like since the early 2000s, they've been a thing. Maybe not so much now. I think people are moving on to baggy stuff. I know I am. But yeah, at the time, skinny jeans were super popular, so I wore them to school, right? And it wasn't breaking a dress code or anything. You were allowed to wear those. And I remember my English teacher was like, Austin, those make you look like a girl. And I was like, well, my girlfriend really likes them. And he's like, okay, sure, dude. Now, I didn't say this, but all I wanted to say was okay, buddy, that's why you're on your 3rd divorce. But I didn't say that because I'm not an evil human being, even though it was true. He was on his 3rd divorce, but, that's besides the point. But yeah, just little things like that. And those happened a lot. I would come in wearing a t-shirt for a band I liked, and he'd be like, oh my God, that's not even real music. He was just a dick, right? And on top of that, I thought he was a terrible teacher. Most days, I'd come into school and I'd go to his class and I'd sit down and he would just read out of his book and be miserable. He didn't want to be there. At least that's what it seemed like. It seemed like he didn't want to be there. Anytime I'd ask him for help on anything, he would ignore me, or if he did help me, he would look very, very agitated. It just seemed, not like he wanted to be there, right? So on this day, I was pretty miserable. I didn't want to go to English because I didn't like that class very much. But I thought to myself, you know what? I'll just power through. My lunch period is after that. That'll be great. I'll get to see my friends. It'll be worth it, right? So I go to English class. I sit down. We didn't have assigned seats or anything, so I sat in the back like I usually would if I didn't have assigned seats. And class starts. And it starts off like any other English class. He's reading out of his book. He's looking miserable. The other teacher, she's walking around, kind of just being a secondary teacher, just kind of making sure no one needs help. I forgot that I didn't even talk about her. She was just like the other teacher. She just seemed like she didn't want to be there. And if you did ask her for help, she seemed miserable to do it. But whatever, right? She's walking around. She's doing her thing. Both teachers are doing their regular thing, right? And about 20 minutes into class, I feel my phone vibrate. It vibrated once, which usually meant I had a text message or a notification from Twitter or Instagram or something, right? And I didn't check it because I didn't want to be rude. Usually I wouldn't check my phone unless it was a true emergency during class, because I knew if I did, I'd probably just get detention. But then it starts going again. I feel it vibrate again, and then it vibrates again. And on the 4th time, I was like, okay, clearly somebody needs me. So I quickly just glance at my phone. I check the home screen, and it's a text message from my dad, actually. He was asking me if I wanted lunch on that day because I forgot to bring a lunch. And I can eat the school lunch, but the school lunch tasted like dog food. So he was being nice and asking me if I wanted him to drop off some fast food or something. So I quickly pull up in my phone, make sure no one's looking, and I text back and I was like, hey, yeah, if you could bring me like McDonald's or something, that'd be awesome. And he texts back and says, okay, I'll see you at lunch. And yeah, shout out to my dad, by the way. He used to do that all the time. Like, he knew how bad the school lunch was, and he worked down the street from my high school. So he'd just bring me fast food all the time. Like, he'd just hit me up and be like, what do you want? And I'd be like, Pizza Hut. And he'd bring me Pizza Hut, or like Taco Bell, and he'd bring me Taco Bell. He was just the shit, man. Shout out my dad, the GOAT. But yeah, I was excited now, right? I put my phone back in my pocket, and I was excited to have a decent lunch, next period, right? Now, I guess my secondary teacher, she must have saw me texting because she walked over right after I put my phone away, and she saw me sitting there, and she was like, hey, Austin, do me a favor and don't take out your phone again, okay? Please. And I was like, okay, I'm sorry. Like, it was just my dad. He was making sure I had lunch. I won't text again, right? I'm trying to be respectful. And the other teacher, the main teacher, he hears me talking to her, and he stops his lesson, and he goes, Austin, you got something you want to say? And I was like, no, I'm just replying to the other teacher here. And then she chimes in, and she's like, yeah, he was on his phone. I was just making sure he's not going to pull it out again. And he goes, oh, he was on his phone. No, we don't tolerate that here. Detention 2 days in a row after school, starting today. And I was like, really? Like, it was just my dad. He wanted to make sure I had lunch. That's all. Like, I'm not trying to be disrespectful. He's like, it doesn't matter if you're trying or not. You were being disrespectful. You were on your phone. And I was like, come on, like, please, just give me a pass. Like, I don't want to do that. And he didn't care. He was like, I don't care. You're staying after. And I'm like, all right. Usually I'd be a lot more of a dickhead about it. And I'd probably be a lot more, attitude driven and, argumentative or whatever. But I didn't feel like it. And at the end of the day, I knew deep down that I was on my phone and I was texting, which you're not supposed to do in class. So like, I wasn't going to get out of it. Let's just say that. I knew I wasn't going to get out of it. So I kind of just had to accept my fate, right? So anyway, after class is over, I go to lunch, had a really good lunch. My dad brought me some food. It was nice. I got to see him for a second, which was cool. And he said hi to my friends. And then after that, I go about my day, right? The rest of the school day was completely normal. Nothing really happened. But it was after school where the story time really, really starts, right? So after school, I'm walking out to the bus line with all my friends because I wanted to just like hang out with them until they left. And I knew I had to stay after for detention, so I couldn't leave with them. But I wanted to walk with them, right? So I walked out to the bus line and I'm watching them get on their buses and stuff. And I'm hanging out with like my friends as they leave. And like 99% of them got on their buses and left. And I was walking my last friend to his bus, right? Like we're walking there together. And we'll just call his friend Mark. Okay, so me and Mark are walking to the very back of the bus line because that's where his bus would park. His bus would park right behind mine in the back. And like just as he's about to get on his bus and leave, I was like, all right, man, like have fun. Enjoy your day. I'll be at detention being miserable. And he's like, yeah, man, that fucking sucks, man. I'm sorry. Like, what teacher is it again? And I told him, and he's like, oh, man, he's a dick. And I was like, yeah, a little bit. And he's like, do you want something to make it feel better? And I was like, what? What the fuck does that mean? And he's like, and he does like a smoking motion with his hands. And I was like, do you have some? And he's like, bro, I always got some. He goes, hold out your hand. And I was like, okay. So I hold out my hand, and he like takes his hand, puts it in his pocket, and then like with a fist, he puts his hand in mine and like slowly lets it go. Kind of looks like he's shaking my hand, right? And I feel this bag in my hand, and he turns around and he goes, see ya. And he gets on his bus and he leaves. Now, I kind of wish he didn't do that because I wanted to ask him, like, what'd you just give me? Or like, what is this? But I couldn't really check it right there because there was a bunch of buses and stuff full of people, and I want them to see me. So I turned around and I walked back into the school as quick as I could. I went to the nearest bathroom, went into a stall, and I took out this little bag that he gave me. And in this little baggie, there is like 2 little nugs of weed, a little bowl that is like quite literally the size of like a USB stick. This shit was tiny. And a little cheap like $1 gas station lighter, right? Like all in the same bag, like a little stoner kit, right? And immediately I text my friend, I text Mark, and I was like, yo, what did you give me, bro? Like, why'd you give me all this? Like, isn't this yours? Don't you need this when you get home? And he goes, nah, man, you need it more than I do. And I was like, bro, why are you being so nice today? Because usually Mark was a dick to me. He was never this generous. Usually he was a troll and he wasn't giving anybody shit. Like, it just surprised me, right? And he replies and he was like, you need it more than I do. That teacher's a dickhead. I know I would need that if I had detention with him. And he puts a crying emoji. And I was like, thank you, bro. I'll give this back to you tomorrow. He's like, yeah, just give me back the bowl and the lighter. Like, smoke all the weed if you want. And I was like, all right. So after this, I'm like standing there in the stall, like debating what to do, right? Because detention was going to start any minute. I didn't have much time. And I didn't really know where I could go to smoke without getting caught, right? And if I wanted to begin with, because I knew in the back of my head it'd be really stupid to smoke before detention. Because if I did and I got caught, I'd probably get a lot more detention or suspended or something. Plus, I knew at detention I was going to have to like do homework and stuff. And if I was, stoned, that wasn't going to happen. And then I'd probably get yelled at and get more detention. So I was really kind of at a crossroads. But me being just, stupid, I was like, you know what? Fuck it. I'm going to go smoke. So I went outside really fast after all the buses left, and I went to the field, and I made sure there was no sports teams in the field practicing or anything after school. There wasn't. And I went to the dugout, like the baseball dugout, and I proceeded to sit in the dugout and smoke the entirety of this weed. 2 like pretty well-sized nugs, smoked both of them. Keep in mind, I hadn't smoked for 2 weeks prior to this, so my tolerance was almost just completely gone. And I remember after I was done smoking, I wasn't really feeling it right away. I thought that maybe it was some mid-weed or something. And I looked down at my phone and I realized I was 10 minutes late for detention. And I'm like, fuck. So I jumped up, I ran as fast as I could back to the entrance of the school. It was like the back entrance. I walked in, nobody saw me luckily. No one knew I was walking back in from smoking. And I walked all the way to the room that I was having detention in. And just as I was about to walk in, I realized something. I fucking reeked. I smelled not like a skunk. I smoked like a skunk that smoked 2 blunts, bro. That shit was potent. Like anyone within 5 feet of me was gonna smell weed. So I was like, shit, I have to like air myself out a little bit. Like I need to like go and walk around or something. But also I'm already late. So I was at a crossroads here. I either go in and be 10 minutes late and smell like weed and probably get caught, or I walk around a little bit and then be like 20 minutes late and hope that I don't smell as much like weed, and then I'll just get in trouble for being late instead of both, So I decided, okay, I'm going to go walk around for a little bit, try and air myself out, and then I'll go back to the detention room, right? So I run to my locker, I take off my jacket, put it in there because I knew that reeked like weed, and then I proceeded to like just fast walk around the school hallway like 2 or 3 times because I thought that would maybe air my clothes out a little bit, and it didn't. I still reeked like weed. So instead, I walked all the way to the gym room, I went into the locker room, went into my gym locker and put on my gym clothes, because even though those smelled probably way worse, like body odor, I'd rather smell like sweat than weed, because at least I'm not going to get detention for smelling like body odor. Could you imagine if that's how life worked? Could you imagine like someone walks into school without taking a shower and the teacher in first period's like, hey buddy, you smell like shit, detention? I think people would be a lot cleaner. Anyway, yeah, I put on my gym clothes, didn't smell very nice, but you know what? Like I said, better than weed, because I don't want to get caught. Then I looked in the mirror after I put my gym clothes on, and my eyes were pretty red, but you know what? Not much I could do about that. I didn't have any eye drops, and if my teacher asked, I was just going to say allergies or something. So after this, I went to detention. At this point, I was 25 minutes late to detention. I missed like pretty much half of it. And I walk in, and my teacher looks up at me and he goes, wow, Austin, surprised you even bothered showing up. You're 25 minutes late. And I was like, I'm sorry. Like, I had to deal with something. My clothes got a stain on them. I had to change, which was a bullshit lie, obviously. But, I couldn't think of anything else. And he goes, that's a terrible excuse. Just sit down. I'm giving you lunch detention because you were late. And I was like, okay, whatever. So tomorrow, the day after this detention, I'd have to go to lunch detention on top of the other detention I had after school too, right? But whatever. I figured that wasn't that bad. Who cares, right? So I sit down in the back, and I don't know what happened. I don't know if this weed just had like a delayed reaction or something, or if I just didn't realize how high I was yet. But the minute I sat down in the back of the room by myself, I realized how high I was. I sat down and the whole thing just hit me like a truck. I remember I sat down and I looked around, and it felt like my head was on like a swivel. Like I looked to my left, and it felt like I wasn't even moving my head. It felt like someone was moving it for me, and I was just in the passenger seat watching my own like eyes move. It was the weirdest feeling. It was like disassociation or something. It was crazy. And then after realizing that, I start getting in my head a lot more, right? I start kind of like worrying and freaking out, and I start getting paranoid and having kind of a panic attack. And I'm like, fuck, man, I'm too high. Fuck, man, like I'm way too high right now. Like, why'd I smoke that weed? I shouldn't have smoked. Fuck. And while I'm having this like panic attack, the teacher comes up to me and he's like, all right, Austin, like, come on, get your homework out. Like, get working. You're not here to like just sit here, get something done. I'm like, okay, I'm sorry. So I start going into my backpack. I grab a folder. I pull out some random worksheet to some random class. Don't even know if it was homework or not. I think it was just some random worksheet to make it look like I was doing something. and I start pretending to work on this thing because I knew if I even tried to do any schoolwork, I was going to get an F because I knew my brain was just not functional enough right now in the state that it was in to do any kind of homework or schoolwork, right? So I'm sitting in the back of the room having a panic attack, way too high on weed and pretending to do schoolwork, right? And my teacher, he's just like doing his rounds. And also that other teacher comes in the room at this point, the girl. And they're both doing their rounds, like making sure we're working, and I'm pretending to work. I'm like circling stuff and highlighting stuff, trying to look like I'm doing something, right? And that one teacher, the girl, after circling the room like 3 or 4 times, she stops at my desk and she goes, "Austin, what is this you're working on?" And I didn't even know. That's how high I was. I wasn't even reading it. I wasn't even paying attention. And I straight up looked at her and I was like, "Oh, just something for school." And she goes, "Yeah, obviously. What is it?" And she grabs it and she starts looking at it. And she's like, "Austin, this was dated last year. This is something from 8th grade. What are you doing?" And I was like, "What?" And I look at it and she's right. The date was literally from last year. And it was some old thing that I forgot to throw out of my folder from 8th grade. And she's like, "Austin, are you okay?" And she looks in my eyes, my super bright red eyes. And I was like, "Yeah, I'm fine. Why?" And she goes, "You look just really out of it. Are you sure you're okay?" And I was like, "I'm fine." And she goes, "I don't trust you." And I was like, "Why don't you trust me?" And now I'm like really freaking out inside, dude. Like now I'm really paranoid. And she just keeps looking in my eyes and she keeps saying the same thing. She's like, "You just seem so out of it. Like you seem so tired." And she starts to get like a smirk on her face. And now I'm freaking out. I'm like, "Oh, she knows. She knows I'm too stoned. She knows." And I was like, "I'm fine. I just have allergies." She goes, "Really? For someone that has allergies, you're not sniffling, you're not coughing, your eyes aren't watering, your nose isn't running. Are you sure it's allergies, Austin?" And I was like, "Yeah, it's allergies." She goes, "What are you allergic to? Marijuana?" And the other teacher hears that and he goes, "What?" And he walks over. And now I have 2 teachers standing over my desk. I'm uncomfortably stoned. I have a paper in front of me that's from the 8th grade, not even current schoolwork. So obviously I was too stoned to realize what I was doing. And I'm just 110% fucked. I'm just going to get caught, right? And this guy goes, "Are you high, Austin? Did you smoke? Is that why you were late?" And I was like, "No, I have allergies." And he goes, "Let me see your backpack. Let me look." And I was like, "Go ahead." So he like looks in my backpack, which I don't even know if he was allowed to do. I'm not sure if teachers are allowed to search backpacks. Probably not. I'm pretty sure security or like the school cop would have to do that. But I didn't care. I didn't have anything to hide. And if it was going to get him and like the other teacher off my back, then so be it, right? So he's searching my backpack. He's like dumping stuff out of it. He's looking through my pencil case. He's looking through my folders, trying to see if he could find any like hidden weed or something. Obviously, he found nothing, so there was nothing there. And after he tore my backpack apart, he was like, "All right, I still think you're high, but I can't find anything, so I can't do anything about it. If you ever show up to my class or my detention late again and your eyes are red like they are today, I'm sending you right to the principal's office, okay?" And they're both just looking at me with like this face of judgment. And I was like, "Yeah, of course, sure. But I'm just letting you know, like, it's just allergies." I'm lying through my teeth, which is, not good. Don't do that. But yeah, I lied. I was like, "Yeah, it's just allergies." And my teacher goes, "Yeah, sure, Austin. I've had you in my class for 2 months now. Never seen you have allergies one time. And it just happened to kick in right now. And you're 25 minutes late. You're wearing gym clothes instead of your other clothes. Wonder why. And your eyes are red. Such a tough equation to solve, Austin." And now I'm shitting myself. Like, from the weed to the way I was getting, like, basically interrogated, I was, like, freaking out inside. Like, my heart was probably going, like, 160 beats a minute. It was going crazy. And I'm, like, about to shit my pants, right? Because he's just putting it all together. He knows that I'm wearing gym clothes because I never wear sweatpants and stuff. My eyes are red. Probably also knows that I'm acting funny. Like, it was just everything, right? But I just sat there silently and frozen, and they both just turned around and they walked away. And I remember the whole rest of that detention, I was just panicking, dude, like shaking. I couldn't even control my arms. Like my arms, like every time I like put them down on the desk, they would just shake uncontrollably. If I put them at my sides, they would shake uncontrollably. Anywhere I put them, they would just shake. So I had to sit there with my hands in my pockets during detention to try and stop them from shaking, like my arms and stuff, but they were still shaking. And then anytime I had to like take my hand out to like write on the paper I had in front of me, because I had to pull out a different paper to work on, like I just shook too bad. I couldn't even write. And everywhere I would look around the room, it felt like I was disassociating because I was so high. And like any kind of thought that I would have would just be a bad one because I was too stoned and I was too paranoid. I just thought that everyone was out to get me. Like, I remember at one point I looked over at this girl who I'd like never spoke to a day in my life that also had detention, and she looked at me and she didn't even give me a dirty look. But I remember in my head I was convinced that she hated me just based on me glancing at her really quick. That's how paranoid and stoned I was. Now, the story time isn't all bad. I ended up getting through detention. I made it to the other side. I got through detention. I got on the after school bus. I went home. Nothing else happened with my teachers. I got home and I was still pretty high. And I spent the rest of that day, like before my mom got home from work, just stoned, munching on pizza and playing COD with some friends online. That was pretty fun. I can't lie. But after that was over with and I came down, everything was okay. The next day rolled around. And I got to school, and on this day, I had English first period. And I walked in early, actually. I didn't get there late because I knew if I got there any time after the time that class was going to start, I would have probably gotten in trouble. My teacher actually pulled me aside. Yeah, he had me come out in the hallway with him. And he looked at me and he goes, "Wow, Austin, eyes are looking good today. Not red at all. Must have got some allergy medicine." And I was like, "Yeah, I don't really have allergies until later in the day." And he's like, "That's pretty weird. Never seen anyone's allergies do that." And I was like, "Well, mine do." And he's like, "Sure, get back to class." And he sent me back in. So yeah, really, really, like, he was super suspicious of me and I was super paranoid. But the rest of that year, I actually didn't really have too many run-ins with him. And I stayed pretty much out of his way and out of trouble, at least with him. Can't say the same for other teachers and, my principal and stuff, but yeah, with him, I was able to kind of avoid getting in trouble too much after that. But yeah, really, really scary, really, really crazy. Obviously, that leads me to this. Moral of the story is, just like yesterday, don't be like young Luna. Do not go and sneak out of your school to smoke weed and then go to detention high. That is a terrible idea on every account. Don't do that. Learn from my mistakes. Don't be like me back then. But yeah, guys, I hope you enjoyed this story time. If you did, please leave a like on the video. I'd really appreciate it. Feel free to leave your story times in the comments down below. And subscribe if you're new. I'll see y'all later. Peace.
Take his 401k and I'll put it on my wrist. Only YSL my fit.